Even though the Nintendo Switch console has been out for over 7 years now, I still never purchased any third-party controller for the console at all. I know, it's horrible, you can judge me all you want. But after testing this QRD T5, I kind of regret not diving into the world of third-party controllers, because this is probably one of the coolest controllers I've used. The controller was sent to me by QRD and is built for the original Nintendo Switch, including the OLED model. This is thanks to the controller's rail connectors. You can also manually sync the control to the Switch 2, and it can be used wirelessly on the console, be it in docked or tabletop mode. The Stellar T5 comes packed with some great features. The most important is likely the Hall effect joysticks that promise a drift-free experience and are built to last. But the controller ticks all the other boxes you would expect from a Switch product. It comes with all the gyro support, so you can play Splatoon and use motion. It also includes all the usual Nintendo button layouts, so you won't feel like you're missing out on anything here. But outside of the expected features, the Stellar T5 also comes with some surprisingly cool tech. A macro button on each of the controller let me assign a button to it for quick access. I could also tweak the vibration intensity on each controller. There's also RGB support around each joystick, which can be customized by using a series of buttons on the controller itself. Then there's the turbo function button, which can also be assigned and pressed at either 5x, 12x or 20x rate. I usually don't use these turbo button modes, but it's a great feature for those who need it. When you pick up your T5, the controller comes connected to its middle shell. You also get a USB-C to USB-A charging wire in the box, but keep in mind that each controller has its own USB-C port for charging, so you'll need to find another cable if you're charging them at the same time. The overall design of the controller is quite cool. The two Joy-Con pads feature a translucent plastic outer shell, and the button placement feels great. The Joy pads also have larger bottom grips for your wrists, and overall they fit quite nicely in my hands. I also have quite large hands, so this is really a win here. When attached to the middle shell, the controller forms its complete unit and feels quite nice to hold. The overall width and length here gives the controller a fantastic fully fledged feeling, as if I was holding a Pro controller or perhaps a DualSense controller. I really have no complaints about the size and the weight of this device. Each button is easily accessible when holding the controller too, and the macro keys at the back feel like they are all within reach and I wasn't accidentally pressing them for no reason. Keep in mind that programming the macro keys is restricted to each side of the joypad, so you can't program the A button to the left macro key, for example. The left joypad can only be programmed to buttons on the left joypad. This really isn't a problem for me because I usually program the left stick click to the left macro and either the A or B to the right one. But if you're someone who programs the right keys to the left macro, keep this in mind. Programming the keys is quite straightforward. Each side has its own macro assignment button that, once held down, let me assign the actual button to that macro side. I could then easily change this by holding down the macro button again and choosing another button. There's also a way to assign a combo sequence to the macro key. Here I would start the macro assignment and then press the button sequence I wanted within 1 second of another. This is cool for those who want to assign certain combination presses to the controller's macro buttons. I tested this in Pokemon Legends ZA, where I quickly assigned a fast travel combo button press to the controller so that I could maybe shiny farm Pokemon, because fast traveling in the game seems like the fastest way to spawn shinies, and if you're just pressing one button instead of going through a whole sequence to choose the fast travel point and then where you want to go and then confirming it, it makes life so much easier. And this controller, surprisingly enough, pulled off this combo quite easily. Changing the RGB is also quite straightforward. The turbo mode button needs to be held down and then you just click in either L3 or R3 button to change the colors. You hold them down to change the brightness and double click to adjust the RGB style. Daily use of the Stellar T5 was quite nice. The buttons all use micro switch buttons, which results in a mouse-like click across everything you do. It also means the buttons feel tactile when pressing them in, and everything just felt incredibly intuitive. Of course, these micro switch buttons result in a more noisier environment than usual, and are obviously louder than most button presses on the market. However, there's almost no noise from the buttons wobbling when being pressed here, so it all makes the whole thing incredibly satisfying because you only hear the clicking and not so much the button wobbling. As mentioned, the controller comes in multiple parts. When attached to the middle shell, it acts as a full controller. However, you can also slide these off and use them individually. Sliding and removing them from the rail is easy enough and quite smooth. You can also attach the Joy-Con wrist straps to the controllers too in case you're playing motion games with them. But keep in mind that the wrist straps don't secure on the controller itself, so they might just slide off. You might just have to hold the controller a bit firmer. Once the controllers are removed from the middle shell, the included SR and SL buttons also work as expected. All functions work as intended once removed, and I had no issues using this controller in any sort of environment. Of course, you can also attach them to your Switch console itself. Once attached, they create some fantastic grip on the unit, even though they do make the general width a bit longer than expected. Keep in mind that the controllers do charge when attached to the Switch, so the only time you'll need to use the USB-C cable is when they aren't attached to the actual console. I used the T5 for a few weeks. I used it attached to my Switch OLED and paired to the Switch 2 for dock gameplay. Everything worked without an issue and it felt great. If I have one complaint, it's probably that the vibrator motors are a bit too loud and a bit too strong for me. Even on the lowest setting, they are quite annoyingly loud and cause some rattling on the unit. I often just turn them off completely to avoid hearing the vibration. I also noticed that the battery life doesn't last long when the controller is turned off. I would leave it in the box for a day or so and return to have the controller completely flat. But if you have this attached to your Switch, then you should be okay because it's always remaining charged. If you're using it for TV mode, you'll likely need to always keep it charged up, which again requires two USB-C cables because each side of the control needs to be charged by itself. But apart from that, the QRD T5 is a great device. The battery life here lasts for about a few days of gaming, and the customization options make this pretty fantastic for daily gaming. I really wish I found this controller earlier because all I wanted to do is attach it to my Switch 2 now, and obviously it doesn't work because the Switch 2 has those magnetic connectors and this relies on the old school railing system. But hopefully QRD will have a Switch 2 version coming our way very soon, and I promise you now I will make sure to pick that up on day one. The controller retails for just over 1,000 Rand in South Africa and can be purchased directly from the QRD website and shipped to the country. They offer free shipping and pay the tax on the product, so you don't have to pay any customs duties. So you just pay for your order and you'll get it. I will leave a link in the description down below where you can pick it up. So those are my thoughts on the QRD T5. Are you looking to pick it up or have any questions? Let me know in the comments down below. Huge thanks to QRD for sending it my way to test out. It's become part of my gaming setup now. While you're here, please consider subscribing for future content like this, and until next time, farewell.